One thing that's been lost in our culture is true rites of passage, like this separation from your mother, that you go from being a boy that's dependent on your mother to a man that can take care of itself. And I think that's something that we've lost.
Welcome to another edition of Living Boldly with Purpose. I'm Dr. B. I'm your host today. And when we think about success leaves and clues, I say that often. You probably heard me say that if you've watched any of my videos, that you're always looking for folks that are successful in things that they're doing. But sometimes it's hard to define exactly what success is or what does that mean? Because for some people, success, in the general terms is, we're successful if we make a certain amount of money, or we have a certain amount of money in the bank, or we drive around with these trinkets. Like we see somebody in a Mercedes-Benz car, and we go, "Well, that person must be successful." And they could be the most miserable person in the world because we don't know. We're not in the car. They could be driving their mom's car. They could be driving whatever it is. We don't know. But somehow here in America, we have decided that success is usually about some type of money. The other thing that I hear a lot in success is the amount of time you have. And Gabe, I don't know if you've heard that, but they say success is a person who has a lot of time to go do what they want to do when they want to do it. Now they're successful. I would say in my mind that time is more important than money. You ask anybody on their deathbed, or somebody's on their deathbed, and you say, I'll give you $1 million, but you only got an hour to live. Or would you rather, or I can let you live for the next, month or two and not have the $1 million? What would most people take? Most people would take the time over the amount of money that you could be given. And so that time tends to be success. And then there's other times where when you're serving others and you're living in purpose, that is success. Because if you can go around every single day and serve others in a way that enhances their life, it brings joy to your life, and you could do that every day of your life and never have to worry about money or never have to worry about, what other people would call success, would that be successful? And I think in a lot of cases that is. And so today we get to talk with Gabe, and Gabe and I were talking right before the podcast here, and he was telling me he gets to do some of that with those wonderful things. He gets to start traveling at the end of this week, where he's going to go all over a part of our country. He's going to get to go to the equator and maybe go to Ecuador. He's going to go to Brazil. He's going to do some fun things, but in order to enhance his ability to serve others. And that's just so exciting, because that's when we talk about success leaving clues. That's exactly it. And so what I've asked him to do is tell the story. How did he get to this point where he gets to do all this traveling? Some of us, that would be the greatest thing in the world to do. Unless you're afraid of flying, then it probably wouldn't be the greatest trip to do if you're doing that. But what an opportunity that he has. And so, Gabe, please start with your story, just wherever you want in life, and then up to the man that you are now. And then we'll just kind of move on from there and chop it up with some other cool things after you're done.
Thank you, Dr. B, for having me. I think a really good place to start is, I think as a millennial, we were the first generation where we were told to find what we want most in life. And that's what our job should be. That don't worry about money, don't worry about these other things, just figure out what you want to do. And I found it really paralyzing. In college, I never knew what I wanted to study, what my career was supposed to be. Like I felt like I had the capacity to do any of these things. Like I could go to law school and be a lawyer. I could go to medical school. Theoretically, all these things were open, but none of them really called to me. And so I dropped out of college. I got service jobs. I was a delivery driver for a long time. And I got to a point in my mid-20s where there was a decision to make. I could continue working a job that did not make me happy, was not fulfilling, and make no money, live with my parents, or I could go train to be a software engineer and make great money and maybe still not be fulfilled. But which of those two would I rather have? Would I rather have financial freedom and success, as it were? Or would I rather be broke and living with my parents maybe forever? And so I went all in on that. I moved from Philly to Miami to go to a coding boot camp, which were really popular at the time. I spent 10 years building a career and mostly topped out in that profession as a lead software engineer. And I was making more than I ever thought I would. I own a house, and slowly it just kind of dawned on me that I was not getting any satisfaction out of life, that there was no pleasure in anything I was doing. I was spending all week waiting for the weekend, and then I had nothing to do I wanted to do on the weekend. And I'd wait for work because it was at least something to do. And kind of through happenstance, like call it manifestation or fate, or maybe just the creepiness of social media algorithms, I started getting followed by a retreat center in Portugal. And at the time, flights were really expensive to go to Portugal, and I ended up going to a retreat in Costa Rica that was serving the same psychedelic plant medicine. And that 1 week in Costa Rica, it shifted things enough. It gave me enough space to see what I really wanted from life, or to start working towards that. And so the next year, I shifted my path from how do I make the most money to how do I be the most fulfilled, the most happy. And then the next 2 years after that, I started building a skill set to help other people do the same thing. And in the last few months, I have been deep in training to do that. And then I was laid off right after I started my official training and had to make the decision. Do I want another job? For software engineers, sometimes it's really easy to get another job. It's really abundant for jobs, especially with a lot of experience. And I decided this is what I want to do. I don't want another job that will not be fulfilling, that will just take up my time and earn me money. And so that's where I am now. I'm building a business to try and help people on a similar path, the same path that I was on, from, depression to, hopefully fulfillment, purpose, whatever else.
So you're a coach now that coaches other people to do what you had to figure out how to do through all this process of going places and talking to people, and say, wait a minute, I don't want people to have to deal with all the stuff I had to deal with. I want to streamline it for them. Correct? Is it to get it?
Sure. And, I have a lot of great mentors and teachers, and I won't say I was alone, but it is, where I'm at now is the compounding of all of my teachers, or hopefully that's eventually where I'll get to be, because I'm just getting started and I don't want to come in with a big ego and think I know everything or I can fix everything or heal everyone. But yeah, I mean, hopefully I have my unique thing that I bring that other people cannot bring. And there are people that will find me and will feel held and cared for by me at the very least. And if I can move them through a process and I can move them to a place where they can see themselves better, know themselves better, feel better in their lives, that would be great. But I think we do have an epidemic where no one feels like they have someone on their team. No one really has people to trust, people that are on their side. And so that's the bare minimum for me, is I want to be that person.
I love it. One thing you started out with, you said that part of the millennials is we're telling the millennials to go out and find the thing that they love to do. Are we giving tools to help people do that? Is that like, hey, just go do it? I think of Nike, right? Just do it. But if you don't tell or teach people how to do it, then what does that mean? I don't even know what to do. You're telling me to go do it. Is that kind of where you kind of started out trying to figure out, like, oh no, we didn't prepare you. We just said go fulfill your life.
I think that's a big part of it. I think even at the core, and like I'm kind of going back, you sent me a bunch of questions before this, kind of like thinking of your questions, that we don't even know ourselves well enough. We're 18, we've been living lives based on what our parents, our teachers, all these people have told us who we're supposed to be. So we don't even know ourselves well enough to start to figure those questions out. And some of that is like all these stories, all of these expectations. And then some of it's like trauma that we build up all these defense mechanisms our entire lives to protect ourselves. And the real us is underneath somewhere, but we need to kind of do some digging and some searching and some, spend some time to know who that is. So the expectation that you can figure out at 18 when you're not fully mature, your brain's not fully mature. I think like, I don't remember exactly, but I think like women finish maturing at like 23 and men at 25 or something like
Yeah,
that.
29, I think. Yeah, it's even later.
But yeah, and it's actually shifting with it's actually shifting as the generations go. That becomes older and older.
Yeah.
So at 18, we're expected to make these huge decisions for the rest of our lives when we don't even have the capacity to know who we are to start to make that decision.
Yeah, and you think about what you're saying. I think of our experiences are the ones that our parents wanted us to have for most of our life, right? I mean, I guess by the time you're high school, you're starting to create some of your own. And then I'm thinking, like, biblically in the Bible days, they said you're a man, or you think of the Jewish, culture. At 13, you get bar mitzvah, and you are a man. And I'm thinking at 13, I couldn't hardly tie my shoes. Look at what I want to do. And until you create experiences, you really don't know what that is. And so, and you said you went to college, you dropped out of college. So evidently, or maybe you went back, but you don't need to be a software engineer. It's not like this. Go to school, you have to get this incredible education in, mechanics or whatever, engineering in order to be a software engineer. What kind of experiences do you think helped shape your belief that, one, money isn't everything because you're making good money and you're not fulfilled? And it's the experience that shaped, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I mean, definitely being at that place where I didn't even know how to spend the money I had. Like I bought a house, and then by the end of the year, I had so much money in my bank account. I was like, someone tell me how to invest this, because this is like, no one should have this much in their checking account. And that's not a brag. It was like, I had nothing fulfilling, nothing I wanted to do to spend the money on. And so that realization that, money helps with a lot of things. Like if you're below the poverty line, you need enough money so you can feel safe in your life. You need money for food, for your residence, all these other things. But there becomes a certain threshold where you have your needs met, you can do hobbies, you can travel, and then making more money is not going to do it for you. And for me, it's like that jump from 100 to 200 even, it wasn't really doing a lot for me because I had my needs met. I didn't budget going to the supermarket, never worried about rent. And then it was just piling up in my bank account. And for what? So I can show off, I can show someone on my phone, look how much money I have. Like I wasn't like I was doing that, but what was it doing for me? So that was definitely that realization for me. And then slowly as I started to work on myself, there's this disconnect where I go and spend time like in these conversations where we can really get deep, really be vulnerable, and then go into work on Monday, had to put a mask on for my manager, have to put a mask on to protect myself, have to not be me, hold in my emotions, and spend all day kind of working on someone else's budget, someone else's needs for their goals and not mine. And over time, it just became more and more stressful that I'd have to keep on doing something I didn't want to do. That a lot of people, they live really great lives outside of work. They're at peace with their job, even if it's not their purpose. And I realized that was not for me. That was too much of my life was spent doing stuff that I didn't want to be doing.
Yeah, when you think about like your identity and the person that you want to become, one of the reasons I ask people to tell their stories at the beginning is because I want to know who they are, not what they do. And so many of us define ourselves by what we do. And like you were just saying, these folks might have some lives outside of work, and the job is okay because they got purpose outside of work. But it sounds like as you were creating your identity, you didn't want to be known as the software engineer, that you felt there was more. Were there pivotal points where you were trying to figure out who you were that kind of led you into this is great, but yes,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like it definitely started off where I was building this beautiful life outside of work and creating deeper friendships, deeper relationships, community, going all over America and South America to go to retreats and events. And then I would come back and I'd be like, you know what, it's okay because I'm doing the stuff I want to outside.
Mhm. Yeah.
And more, I'd come in on Monday and be like, this is not what I want to do. Actually, I came back from Brazil last year, the first time I went, and the retreat was very focused on learning from the indigenous. And we spent a lot of time with them, and there wasn't a lot of activities. Like some retreats, like it's yoga at 9, and then you do breath work, and then you maybe tour the city, and all these things are happening. And really, like, we'd have something in the evening, and the next day, we'd just spend all day in the community. We'd walk down to the river, and people would be playing drums and hanging out, and realizing that our culture in the West, we are so far away from how we lived for 90,000 years. I don't know, from humans until agricultural revolution. We're so far away from that. And now we're at this place, like you're saying, where we are identifying with our work. We are getting our purpose from our work. And instead of getting our purpose from just being human, identifying with like our human characteristics. And so even that idea, like I'm so much more aligned as a career as a coach. And I don't want to say I am a coach. Like that is my embodiment space. If I say
Mhm.
I am, that's who I am at my core. I want to say I am loving, I'm grateful, like I am deserving of all these things, but I'm really cautious to say I am. I work as a coach. I help people. I help myself. But yeah, for sure, there was this big disconnect that I had with how I was identifying, how I was living, and even like the question. I think as Americans, we never ask the question, what should life be or what could life be? We we ask the question, what should I do for work? Who do I want to marry? But not like this feeling state. What do I like at my core? What do I want my life to be, and who do I want to be? I think a lot of that is lost. And even touching on that bar mitzvah piece where I was bar mitzvahed, it was a
Okay.
big show. It was a big show. I'm being, you have all these people teaching me things, being paraded around. I'm doing this performance. I didn't feel any different the day after. I didn't feel any different during it. And actually, I felt very childlike, childish being there. It's like wearing this weird outfit, saying words I don't understand. And one thing that's been lost in our culture is rites of passage, true rites of passage. And often they're very challenging, they're very difficult, but specifically for men and African, South American cultures, probably in Native American cultures as well, there's a distinct point where it's like you go through something really challenging and you go from being a boy to a man. I know some, it's specifically like this separation from your mother, that you go from being a boy that's dependent on your mother to a man that can take care of itself. And that's something that we've lost. And I'm not saying people should go out all the time and seek the hardest things possible, although a little bit in acute hardship, it can be a growth opportunity. And I think that's maybe part of why we're so lost here. Like we don't have these cultural touch points.
Oh, that's so true. And I think about you, when they say, well, you're able at, when you go through that rite of passage, you can now take on a wife and you can start a family. And I mean, can you imagine yourself at 13, 14 years old, starting a family in our culture, in our world with, I don't even know if we're teaching or helping our kids grow up as if they have to. We try to hold on to them longer and longer and longer and longer. And do they get to go through that? So when you're doing this and you said I'm not fulfilled and I'm not the things that are not that I would like to do in life, I don't even know what those are. How did your quest or your journey begin? Did you just look through a magazine and say, hey, here's a retreat, I think that might be interesting? Did you have associations with people who were doing it? I mean, how does somebody stumble upon?
Yeah. I mean, for me, there's like so much happenstance. There's so much fate in it that, I don't know if your worldview incorporates using plant medicine, psychedelics, what you feel about that. But here in Colorado, in recently, last 2 years, a lot of these things became de facto legal. You can't buy them in a store, but you're not going to get arrested if you have them. And so I was searching how to get microdoses at the time. I was like Googling, how do I get microdoses of mushrooms? Because I heard it's really good for emotional regulation. It's really good for depression symptoms. And I didn't find those mushrooms, but this retreat standard started following me. And I had heard about this medicine called Iboga. For years and years, I had heard about it. And it's known to be very powerful and very challenging. And it just kind of like sparked something in my brain. I was like, this might be the only thing. Like of all the medicines, of all the therapies, this might be the only thing that can help. And so I got very one-sided, and I started looking into where can I go to do this. And initially the Portugal retreat was where I planned on going, but it was like $2,500 flights to Portugal that summer. And it was actually really funny that I initially wanted to go, and then a friend of mine had cancer, and I felt like he did not have financial resources, and I wasn't planning on giving him money, but also I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of money in case he needed something. So I missed the first weekend I was going to go, or the first week I was going to go. And then I had a bachelor party with my first ever friend that I've known since I was 3. And I looked up, and flights were cheaper from Boston to Costa Rica than they were back to Colorado. And I was like, this is like so weird. And so it was like we're a bunch of dorky guys. We weren't drinking, we weren't partying, we're playing video games and miniature golf or whatever. And so it wasn't like, if it was like a Vegas bachelor party, it would be deeply inappropriate to go directly from there to a retreat setting. Yeah. And also unsafe as a mixture. So I booked the flight, I went down there, and then when I came back, it was like, what now? It's like everything is different. And what do I do now? That like that medicine is really strong. It's really challenging. It's really long. And I wanted to keep on working on myself, but I had no idea what that meant. And I've been hearing about cacao, which is very gentle. It's very heart opening. And I was getting body work done by a mentor of mine. And she said, oh, well, I have someone I can introduce you to. And so she introduced me to someone, and then I met someone there, and they introduced me to someone else who introduced me to their mentor, who introduced me to 3 of their mentors. And really, even the massage therapist who I was seeing here, that is the mentor of my trusted body worker from Philadelphia. So there's like 6 levels of connections to get to where I am now, all these people. So it's like one recommendation, one trusted person. It's like, oh, I'm with this person. I'm like, no, that doesn't feel right. And they introduced me to someone else, and that feels better. And so it's really just a lot of trust and a lot of faith, and like surrendering that if I trust what's put in front of me, I'm going to get what I need. And it's repeatedly paid off, and repeatedly just met so many amazing people through this process who have been the right people for me at the time. And the person that was right for me 2 years ago might not be right for me now. And the people I'm with now might not be right for me in a month. And I have no idea. So I'm just trusting and going with it. And even, this trip I'm about to go on, that there was a Brazil trip scheduled with some of my mentors and their mentors. And there's a coach training the same week. I'm like, can I go to half the training and then go to Brazil? And so I orchestrated that. And then there is a retreat in Ecuador in March. Like, can I just stay in South America and then go to Ecuador? I'm like, oh, but there's actually a group in Miami between. And like, that's crazy. I should not fly back. I'm like, no, but I really want to go. And it just kind of just flowing with like, what do I want most? Like, I'm gonna be so tired in Miami flying back 8 hours, but that's where I want to be. That's where I want to most be in the world. I'm gonna keep on following those little breadcrumbs of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Gotcha. When you think about, trust, you use the word trust, and being able to trust it. Was that kind of like a muscle where you're kind of apprehension about trusting somebody because you don't know. Like, I can't imagine there's 1,000 people that use the drugs and giving you all the examples, right? You're trusting that somebody's leading you down this right path, and then after that works out, you can trust again. Or was it like, hey, it doesn't matter, I'm going to trust everybody anyways, and we'll see where it all takes us. How did you get into that world of I'm going to just continue to trust? I think that's so hard for us to be able to do.
Yeah, trust is such a complex ecosystem, and I am stream of consciousness right now. This is not something I've ever stated before, but like trust and safety, right? And I was in such a desperate place that I said, it doesn't matter. I just need to go do this thing. My lack of safety is not going to prevent me from doing this. And also, I was so numb that I didn't even know I felt unsafe. I didn't know I felt unsafe until I was in ceremony in Costa Rica. I started having all these conspiratorial thoughts. Like the doors were really weird in the house. They locked from the outside, the bedrooms. And I was like, they're going to lock us in our bedrooms at night. They're not going to let us out. And it turns out that it was an old house in Costa Rica and it was patios on every side. And so those are the old doors in case someone was trying to break in. Those are the original doors, but they're not going to like tear this. It's an old house in Costa Rica. And so I had all these conspiracies running, all this mistrust. And it's this interesting dynamic of like some trust and then pulling back and being afraid and feeling a lot of fear, feeling a lot of safety. And then like some good things happening and then feeling deeply unsafe because I'm not used to good things happening. What if it gets taken away? What if these people leave me? And so over and over again, this push pull of like, can I get myself a little bit closer, trust a little bit more? And then there's a part of myself that is like all in all the time, that is reckless. And that part of myself steers a lot of the time. I'm like just going to these places and then I get there and then I'm like, what did I do? This is crazy. I can't believe it. I can't trust myself. How can I trust any of these people? And so it's been this long unfolding of trusting myself more, feeling more safe in myself, and that empowering me to trust other people and to discern who and when are they deserving of my trust, because not everyone is. And some people are in some situations, and others they're not, because everyone's going through their own process. The people that are helping you are going through their own process, and recognizing, like giving them grace to have their process, and recognizing like when they're in alignment and integrity. And it's all just like this big like twisted mash of all these different things that you have to work through all the time.
Yeah, is there something that is like foundational that kind of you draw back to that says, all right, in this situation, I think I can move forward, I can trust? Or is it just that reckless part of you that says, hey, we're going to go for it. If it don't work out, then I'll try something else later? I mean, but is there something that keeps pulling back to you that just gives you that grounded feeling that says, hey, this is worth going for?
There's a few things. There's an intuition piece of feeling like I know where I need to be. That first trip to Brazil, I left Peru on a really long, extensive trip. And the day I left, I was like, I need to go on this Brazil trip. And it was like the day I left, I was just so old there. And I had a great time in Peru. Brazil was life changing. It was like I went to Peru just to incentivize me to go to Brazil. And so there is this deeper knowing of where I'm supposed to be. And then there's also, the discernment piece of meeting people and seeing, can I trust this person? Can I put my faith in them? Because I'm not just going anywhere. I'm not just going with anyone. And even, I've been with indigenous people. I'm going to meet more indigenous people from a different tribe in Ecuador. And I have my teachers that have brought me and introduced me. And that adds an extra layer of safety where their lives are much different than ours, and things that are appropriate in their culture might not be appropriate for me. It might be traumatizing to me because I don't have the cultural context. And so having my Western teachers there, that adds a layer of safety that I know there's someone that understands me, understands my cultural context, who I am as a person, been working with me for 2 years, that if something is happening and it's not good for me, that they can step in, they can help.
Gotcha. You have people who are going to watch this and they're struggling with our Western culture and the pace of our lives and not knowing. And they go, well, he's talking about this retreat. What goes on at this retreat? What is that like? How would you explain, like, you decided to go to this retreat? What goes on, at these retreats that allows you to really kind of just slow down and start understanding yourself, I guess?
Yeah. Well, each one has their own theme, methodology,
Yeah.
activities. Very candidly, I'm going to Brazil. It's an ayahuasca retreat. We are going to be doing ayahuasca there. This retreat, the theme for me is connecting with yourself and connecting with the indigenous. And so there's not a lot of activity. There's not a lot of stimulation. It's a lot of, the retreat center is very natural. There's a lot of grass. We do have beds to sleep in and we are being cooked food, but really, and even like, we were talking before the call, the limited access to the internet. One thing I love when I go to these things is sometimes I put my phone away. I don't grab my phone for a full week. And, just realizing how good life can be when you are present, when you're not checking in on things, you're not worrying about other things, and there's nowhere to be. There's nothing to do besides be right there. And so, it's a lot of these are a lot of healing modalities. There are a lot of learning and a lot of connecting, and you get these deep connections with the other people at the retreat. You remember your camp friends from summer camp way back when. It's like a really amplified version of that because it's a small group. It's really intimate. It's really connective. Yeah, it's retreat is a really interesting word because we are leaving our lives to go this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the goal is we bring some of it back. We bring some back what we learned, bring some back of who we are. And that's actually ties into what I do, that I'm a transformational coach. I'm also an integration coach, that we go and have these experiences, whether it's psychedelics or other life-changing experiences. And it's like, how do we take these things? We apply them to our lives. I think all of us have had things happen in our lives where like, I'm never going to be the same afterwards. And then we're exactly the same the next day. And that's not the point. That's not what we're trying to do, is have a big experience, just to have a big experience. We are actively trying to be different. And I had a particularly intense ceremony on New Year's, and I had this fear. I was like, I'm not going to be the same. Like, I'm never going to be the same after this. I'm never going to return to normal. And the message I got so clear was, you don't want to return to normal. Like that's the point. That's what you're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that's kind of how I see these retreats, as an intense way to really make a big shift, to really connect with yourself and really connect with other people as well.
Are most of these retreats centered around a psychedelic that you go to, or is it, like a mode of yoga? Or, I mean, you said there's different kinds, but are they mostly centered around some type of, I guess, medicinal help that helps you get into these states?
I would say the most that I've done have been that way, but I've done one where it was just two therapists and they took you through processes and you connected with the group. And I want to do one this year that is breathwork focused, where it's I'll put quotes, famous breathwork facilitator, maybe famous in some circles. And he's taking you through opening up all of your chakras and doing breathing. And that's where I am in my life, where I'm in this growth mindset. And I don't use the word healing for myself anymore, or use the word healing with my clients anymore. But that's really what it was about for a long time for me, is how do I get my life back on track? And in the future, I can imagine going and just doing meditation like Vipassana, a silent retreat. I'm very interested in doing something like that. Or even just the same concept of going to a retreat space and having no expectations and nothing I'm supposed to be doing, and just kind of having peacefulness. That's something that we're really missing here in America. And like, you and I both live in or near a big city, and it's really chaotic. And I think that's something that could be helpful if there's no healing needed. It's just getting to some place of peace, seeing stillness.
It really, I want to ask this because you have parents. You grew up as a young Jewish man, and they had a culture that was centered around that. And now your lifestyle is not what you would typically think of a Jewish culture. How do your parents feel about all the things you're doing? And are they going on trips with you now, or what? How's that all working?
Well, that is a dream of mine.
Okay.
I would love for them to come, and there's different medicines of different intensities that are, some might be good for my parents. I would not say, let's do ayahuasca together right away, although that is really beautiful. I've seen families do it together, and it's so healing and so transformational. But you know what? We were not super religious growing up. We had some observances. I tell them what I'm doing. I don't hide it from them. It took me a while to be able to open that. I think they do their best to understand that they have no context. They have no context in any of this, but they do their best to understand, and they want the best for me. They have not really given me a this is what I think about all this. Although my dad occasionally he'll make little skeptical comments here and there, but I tend to think that to them I'm a little bit of an alien right now. That I'm doing something that's so far out, so different, and that's okay because that's the life I choose, and I'm gonna do the life that I want. And it's really like a big part of this process, right? Is like living my life instead of living their life.
Which is good. I mean, I'm just curious as to how that works because some parents, I'm going to disown you. My wife and I were talking about that today. Is after the Super Bowl yesterday, and just I don't know, Kendrick Lamar, did the halftime service, and it's all controversial now. Parents that want to own you or disown you or don't want to say that they know you, and so it's always interesting when somebody does such an alternate that's different than what we do all the time, how that all reflects. When we think about like financing and money portion of this, because it's, obviously you can't just get to Brazil, on any financial side. Did you have to utilize all your funds or a lot of your funds from when you were working as a software engineer before you were able to get going? Like for somebody who says, I want to do this, but I can't go from Peru to Brazil, back to Miami to, and still be able to, like you're going to Ecuador and you're going all over the world, and those, flights are cheaper than they were, but they're still, how does somebody fund the ability to do all this stuff? And then you're not at work, right? Because you spend a month away from home.
For sure. Well, thankfully at this point, when I started all this, I was working my career job, and it did affect my income in the way that I was no longer saving a lot, but it was not making my bank account go down too much. And now I am building a business, and I have to make hard decisions. That I have a severance I got from my job. I decided not to get another job for now, or we'll have to see. Thankfully, my work that I'm doing, I just need an internet connection, and I don't have to do it. I don't have a 9 to 5 right now. Like I'm taking on clients, and those clients, need me for an hour every 2 weeks. So they need to be able to call me sometimes. So I can do this all on the road. Now, someone else, if they're trying to step into this sort of thing, it's honestly it's prohibitively expensive for a lot of people, and it's really this very sad space where even therapy, massage, like more traditional things, if you are living paycheck to paycheck, they are excluded. And so that is a future that I want to create, is to make it more equitable, to make it possible for more people to have access. But right now it's a luxury good, and especially the places that Westerners go. You could go to Peru or Brazil and potentially find someone to serve you medicine for cheap, less than $100, right? you need to take the risk of not knowing the safety of that person. That doesn't mean that indigenous are unsafe, but once money is being added, people have perverse incentives. And so a lot of the retreat centers, a lot of the places that Westerners go, where if you were just to go into the forest with some Peruvians, they might charge you $100 in some places. Or there's a church in Brazil called the Santo Daime Church. You might be able to do that for less than $100. But to go someplace where they have a website, I can talk to someone, I can validate it. There's translators, English speakers, whatever. Dollars and a trip. And so it is this weird space where there's some classism in terms of who has access to these modalities. And to some degree, there is some colonialism here where a lot of these spaces, even though these are indigenous medicines or indigenous medicines with people from South America, Africa, whatever else, it's sometimes psychedelics end up being a white glove. And that's something that, I have some mentors who are trying to deconstruct and change. And that's something that I'm passionate about, although I am just entering and not in the position to make change or even to fully understand what needs to happen. But it's definitely a really interesting space that some people have access, some people don't. Some people culturally have access either as well, because, some cultures think that these things are unsafe, disrespectful, go against your religion, whatever else. And, we all need the help that we need.
Yeah. When I think of, as you're saying, and I'm thinking about the finances, and I'm, my grandmother grew up on a Choctaw reservation in Oklahoma. And so that's part of the culture. And to go to a powwow or to, that's pretty inexpensive here, but you got to be part of the culture almost to be able to be let in. But there's no resort aspect of that. There's no, it's not, oh, this is going to be a fun trip to go on. This is we're seeking, ourselves and that kind of stuff, with that culture. And just, also thinking about the relationships that you now cultivate, because there's got to be some people that you're able to sometimes travel with, or, part of this culture of groups of folks that are doing this. And when I think about Western relationships, you're always trying to be in the room where you're not the smartest person, or you're in the room that, can help you advance yourself. And, and so now you're kind of splitting these worlds because you're running a business. And so you got to be in worlds of people who run businesses that do these types of things. But at the same time, everybody's trying to understand what their best life looks like. How do you, I guess, straddle that with your relationships and the people that you spend your time with?
Straddle.
Well, maybe you don't straddle. Maybe it's, when I'm thinking of like the Western culture of building a business, and then the culture where you go to a retreat and you guys all spend time together, and now saying, okay, am I in the right rooms of people doing the coaching aspect of it? Or I guess they would if you're going to a coaching retreat and they're teaching you how to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of options, and not everything is right for every person. That I ended up with the mentors I have now through a connection with another one of my teachers. And when I entered into this program, I was ready to go all in with an entirely different program, and it was online only. And I like texted the number on the website of these people, and I got a phone call from one of the owners, and we had a great call, and we talked for an hour. I felt really comfortable and really safe and really like she was in integrity and very powerful, actually. And so I made that decision. I was like, okay, I would rather do this program than the other program. And they also did a lot of things to make me feel safe in that they said, I can come to the first coaching workshop, and if I want to do the full program, they'll prorate that week for me. So, worst case is I come to a week and I was like, this is not for me. Best case, I enter into an extended relationship, extended mentorship. So there is definitely discernment there of who are the right people who have something to teach me, who have something to teach me at this point in my life. And then I think something that you're getting at, like business versus the self work, the learning, that as much as possible, like I don't want to be in competition with these other people. That like really I want to be collaborating, and maybe I have something to offer a client at some point, and maybe later someone else I know has something to offer later and can make that relationship. And you know, I definitely would not be wanting to prevent someone else from doing their business. You know, this is not a zero sum game. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that need support. And it's just a matter of matching us to the people that need us.
I love that you're talking in the terms of there being an infinite amount of possibilities and not where we're so much in our culture. We spend time talking about lack, like everything's lack. There's this finite resource. And if I give you any of that resource, then I don't have it myself. So I have to keep it myself because there's not enough to go around. But what you're saying is there's plenty to go around. There's plenty of, this ability, this abundance that allows us to do stuff. And so and a question I have for you on purpose, like I feel like you feel you're living in your purpose now and you're fulfilling the reason you're on this planet. Can you be in purpose and not serve others? And I'm not saying you don't. I just want to, because to me, I don't think you can. I think in order to truly be in service or to be in purpose, you have to be willing to serve others. And so if you're just doing it all for yourself, then
Can I or can people? Because like for me at this,
yeah.
I, I was actually in service recently, and I was telling someone, I was like, I'm here. I'm not getting paid. I don't want to be anywhere else in the world. This is where I most want to be and what I'm most passionate about. And so for me, no, I don't know for other people. Like I think, I don't know, at some deeper level, like I might be in full agreement that like if you strip away all of our protection mechanisms, if you strip away like lack is taught to us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Scarcity is taught to us. And a lot of the behavior that we find unacceptable in our culture, it comes from scarcity. And we're so trained, like people that steal, people that manipulate. It's like they developed patterns to help with their scarcity, to make them feel safe in their scarcity. So if they did not have that and they were their truest self, then I think that they would only want to do things that were loving. And is that not the greatest act of service? Even if that's not your career per se, it's just being loving, the greatest act of service.
Well, I can see like when I think of like gangs and stuff, they're serving each other in some way somehow. I mean, they might not be serving the greater good, but they're creating family for somebody who can't have family, right? They have their own rules, they have their own culture. They might tell you, yeah, my purpose is to be a gangbanger or whatever, and but they're still serving others. So it's hard to me to think of somebody living in a way that they never serve others. Well, I really want to talk about the health aspect of it because especially with Western medicine and stress and all the toxins and all the things that we continue to put on our body, and then we'll go complain about, some of the things, the psychedelics or things you're using that are probably keeping you maybe more healthy than anybody else. What's your viewpoint on, I guess, longevity and on how you stay healthy and how are able to do the things you want to do, how you want to do them, and not, I don't know if you worry about your health or, both mental and physical health. Do you feel like you're in a way better space than you were when you were the software engineer working 10 hours a day?
There's a lot of facets to that, right? That, definitely emotional, spiritual, psychological health. I'm doing better than I've done my entire life. At the time when I quit my job, I was competing in weightlifting. And so I was in the gym 4 days a week. I, carried a lower body fat percentage. It was really important to me. And about a year in, I realized that it was slowly killing me, that emotionally it was not good for me, that I was constantly injured. And so some like measure of health, I was healthier, but I actually had like a 2-week stint where I couldn't really walk. I had such bad sciatic pain that I could walk for maybe 4 minutes. and then I'd have to sit down because it was too much pain. And so there was some health. I'm sure my cardio was better, my body fat was lower, my weight was lower, but was I healthy in that place where I'm about to go on a trip with my friend and she's shocked that I cannot make it through the airport without stopping? I don't know. Um, my my mentors, they have a concept they call the hierarchy of esteem. So there's all these concepts that make us who we are, our spiritual, our physical, our constructs, our mental, all these things. And what we tend to do is we make a hierarchy from top to bottom, that this is the most important, this is the next most important, whatever else. And what they want to do is they want to flip it and they want to make them all even, or as even as possible. And that's what I'm trying to do in my life, is I'm trying to balance all of these things. And my physical health took a backseat for a long time. In the last few months, I've been trying to put more of a focus on it and put better foods in my body and move more, like just be outside, walk more, and be in the gym. I joined a climbing gym, which they're all over the place here, right? But yeah, so definitely, like, I think all of these things are important. It's easy to lose sight of them. I think that's one source of disease and lack of health, is that we are so deep prioritizing things, and sometimes not even relate to health. That, like, the epidemic in America is prioritizing work over everything else, and then all the things that make you, they fall by the wayside. Your physical, your emotional, your spiritual, but you're making a lot of money, but your career's doing well, and then eventually you crash and you can't do your career stuff anymore, and you got to deal with all those other things anyways. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Is I definitely had that linchpin in my weightlifting career that kept me in the gym. And then when I left, it was like, how do I manage my weight when I don't have to make weight every 3 months? What do I want to do in the gym? And so that's what I'm trying to figure out now, is like, what does diet look like? What does lifestyle look like? What does exercise look like that feels like play and that does not feel like work? Because really, I think the strategy for fitness that works is the one that you want to do, and that's what I'm trying to do.
That is 1,000% true. It's got to be the one. There's all kind of things you can do, And what's scary for us is we live in this beautiful state that allows us to be outside and outdoors. But if you don't like outdoors, I guess then it wouldn't be. But there's so many opportunities to be able to keep yourself healthy. Thank you for sharing all that. This has been so enlightening to me. What didn't I talk about that you want to make sure that our listeners and the folks that are watching understand about your lifestyle, or whatever it is that you want to talk to us about in the last 7 or 8 minutes that we have together?
Sure. So first, I just want to quick plug. My Instagram handle is spiritually grounded coaching. I'm taking one-on-one clients for transformation, psychedelic integration, self-actualization. If you just need support, and I'm building. So if you just want to follow, interact, that would be great. That would be really helpful. One thing that I really like talking about that we didn't talk about is, with all this, all the dualities that exist, that to live a good life or to shift and change, there are a lot of things where we need to be able to hold complete opposites at the same time. Both that healing transformation takes exactly how long it takes, not one bit shorter, and belief that it's going to happen right now, that everything's going to work and it's going to be immediate. And holding both those things at once is really important, because if you believe it's going to take a long time, it's going to take a long time. And also trusting that you're not in charge of the schedule. But you can get really frustrated if you say it's going to happen today and it doesn't happen today. You can get frustrated. So that's like the first duality that I came up with, that I need to hold both these things. I need to trust both these things at the same time, and it doesn't make sense to trust them. And it's very counterintuitive to our American brains, right? That they're opposites. How can they both be true? But they both have to be for me to be sane and to continue doing my work.
That's cool. Yeah, because everything, the way I kind of perceive it, that there's two sides to everything. You can't not have or have a one-sided piece of bread, or have a one-sided coin, or
Mhm.
everything has that. And so the laws of nature, positive and negative, and everything else, and seeing, and we try so hard to just be on one side of it all the time. Whereas you're talking about being, that duality that allows you to function and thrive. And I think ultimately that's all we do, or all we're trying to do is to thrive in in whatever God has put us. In my mind, God or Creator or whatever you believe is the source of our energy. Again, thank you. Thank you for spending the time with me today. Thank you for getting on. Thank you for talking about purpose. I love having these conversations because sometimes we start pretending we know everything and how to do everything, and realize there's so many different ways to make this world a beautiful, wonderful, exciting place to be in. And I'm so glad that through your trials and your errors and your things that you did, you found something that is not only helped you, but has had the ability to help others. And whether they're calling you to coach, which I encourage you to do, if this is something like you're struggling and you're saying I need something and everything I've tried isn't working, this is a great place to start and kind of understanding who you are, so then you can be most to others. And so I thank you for that. And for those of you who enjoyed this, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the whatever those YouTube things that you do. Share this with somebody that you think that could benefit from it. I'll put his Gabe's website and everything in the chat notes here. If you're looking for it and you want to be able to go to it and be able to see him and talk to him and have those great conversations. And as I always say, don't forget that you, my friend, are God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. And we'll look forward to talking to you on the next one. You guys have an amazing, awesome, just what I would call incredible day today. And we'll talk with you soon.